you a woman in medicine feeling overwhelmed and disconnected from the personal fulfillment that you desire? You're in the right place. Join Doctors Joanne and Aaron as they rewrite the rules for women in medicine. Let's begin.
We are at the top of the new year, and as many people think about the new year, oftentimes we talk about New Year's resolutions, and sometimes that can be a bit of a sticking point. Today, we're going to have a twist on that. We're going to talk about goals, and we're going to have a twist on goals and how we think about goals and maybe shifting that a little bit differently. And I'm here with my co host, Dr. Joanne Sotelo. And I'm so excited to talk to you about goals because I find that so many women in medicine, we have the goal I'm going to go to medical school, I'm going to do my residency. And then things oftentimes kind of fall apart a little bit because we made it to that goal, those goals, and then what? And oftentimes we become unclear. So I can't wait to pick your brain today about how you look at goals. And I would like to hear from you, Joanne. Some of us have problems with goal setting. And so, what are some of the problems with goal setting, and how can we look at things a little bit differently?
I love talking about goals. For the women who coach with me, they know and they get excited because they know I get excited. But I don't want you to think that this is just, one more goal setting podcast because we are going to give you some different information. And the top of the year is a great time to reflect, have awareness, and think of where do you really want to go. And I'm going to start giving you some distinctions. We have to be very intentional and we have to make it so that these are meaningful goals that are aligned with your values, aligned with your priorities in this season of your life. If you really want to get more of that harmony, that balance, that sense of fulfillment to feel better. It is okay to write down in your goals those same 10 pounds and not to make this about weight loss. But right, like it's kind of a something that we think of when we think about New Year's resolutions. So many people have health goals. So if your brain is already saying, "Oh no, not again," this is the podcast for you because we're going to talk about it from a different standpoint. And I believe that part of what's the problem with goal setting, we all stay super excited, and we just shared a podcast and with Rod, and he was coming up with the statistics that are so common that at the beginning of the year people are so excited with setting goals, and by February less than 10% of the people are still with their goals. So if that's you, no judgment, we're going to do it differently. So it's partly in terms of what's the intention. Are you making it meaningful? Do you have clarity of what it is that you really want? Is it in alignment? And do you have that leverage, those things that can back you up? So I gave a very long answer there, and I'm not sure if I went on a tangent, but hopefully it made sense.
Oh, I think that some of us, I think, are intimidated by goal setting, Joanne, and it's not part of our has not been part of our norm. I know for me, for the first couple of decades of my career, annual goal setting, forward future casting, like we've talked about before, was not part of my normal yearly cycle, even with well, maybe a little bit of New Year's resolutions, but as you say, those don't stick. So I love how you shared some unique thoughts about how we can get beyond maybe what people think of as traditional goal setting. And so I know that you have processes for so many areas of your life, some strategies and structure, Joanne. I would love to hear from you. What is your structure for setting goals?
I will give you my 5-step framework for goal setting. And again, I can go on a million tangents here. So I'm going to be specific myself here in what I give you. And it's fresh in my mind too, because it's part of what I talked about it in my group coaching this week. And just recently, I did a Tony Robbins seminar, Date with Destiny, and they had a little twist for that for goal setting, similar to what I've been teaching. So that was reassuring too. So I'll give you the first step, which might be different than what you've done before. So pay attention. So first of all, we reflect on this previous year and really connect with that. What are some things that you want to celebrate? What were some of the accomplishments? What worked? What didn't? What were your challenges? And what lessons you learned with those challenges? And we can celebrate wins, big and small. So I would challenge you, if as long as you're not driving, to pause and really take a few minutes. This is going to be one of those workshop kind of podcasts because it can be very valuable if you want to follow my formula here. And this is important because this is where we're going to get fuel, and we're going to remind ourselves of our strengths, our tools, what worked, what we want to leave behind, and what we want to carry through.
Yeah. Well, I love this because you and I, Joanne, both use a specific planner system, and that is built into a process that we do weekly. I lead work along sessions a couple times a month, and we practice doing that together each week about what worked and what didn't, so that the next day, the next year, the next decade, you can bring more intention to it because you learned a lesson. And we just had an episode a few episodes ago where we reflected on, if we don't look back, we're not going to be helped looking forward because we're not going to take those lessons along with us. So I love that, what worked and what didn't work. And let's use that for ammunition for a better new year.
Yes, that's our premium fuel, as we like to say. The second step, and I'm going to get cheesy and I love it, we have to visualize this next year. So if you can, again, as long as you're not driving, close your eyes, really gift yourself a few minutes of imagining this next year as the best year ever. Literally imagine that it's December or whatever month, just, about a year out, and we're having this conversation and you're telling me, I've had the best year. And I said, tell me all about it. What did you do? Where are you? So think about it. Really connect with it. Where are you? What are you doing? How are you feeling about yourself? Who is with you? What are some goals that you set up at the beginning of the year that you accomplished? So you're looking back and you're thinking, I wanted to start that project and I was able to set up some plans and ask for help. Really, really imagine that most of your goals, you were able to accomplish them. And if we were doing a coaching call, I would actually really pause and take some time and almost give it to you in a little bit of a meditation, because it's so important to really connect with that imagination of this future focus, as we talk here, of as if things were already in your present. Because we have to hold on to that belief that we can, right? Like Erin shared in her lessons, right? Of saying, yes, I can. And we have to really hold on to that belief that we can. So this is, again, another way to add magic to your goals. If we want to make this year different than previous years, we have to think of what can I do different, right? And I have so many quotes from this Tony Robbins, but it's not like it's unique to him. But what got you here is not the same person that will get you to this next level. So what are some things that you can do differently? And even just sitting down and visualizing, this is right, like maybe something different that you haven't done before, and let your mind go. And if it sounds a little out there, even better, and celebrate yourself. Get into that good emotion and really, really transport yourself to that place where you feel great and you feel so accomplished and you're feeling fulfilled and you have good people around you and it feels great.
And if you're not aware, there's actually research that shares by mentally doing the thing, it actually is the same impact as doing the thing. For example, like if you're, let's say, the field goal kicker on the football team and you visualize yourself kicking that ball, your brain doesn't necessarily know the difference between that imagined reality and when it really happens. Joanne, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's where when you visualize these things that you've accomplished as if they've already happened, then you've already gone through a rep and imagine how much fuel you're going to add to your goals when you go through those reps by using visualization on a regular basis. I don't think we use that nearly enough in medicine. And I actually saw a Facebook reel the other day, and it was showing like the Blue Angels pilots that do all those crazy air moves with all the planes, like, 2 feet from each other or less. And the pilots are going through all these moves that they do. This is how I move this way, and this is where my head goes, and this is where I look, and this is in repetition before they get in the plane and do it because it needs to be automatic. So imagine if we started using visualization to fuel then when it happens in real life, you've already been there. You already know how to accomplish it. So powerful visualization.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up because there is a lot of data on this and brain studies of especially like you were mentioning athletes, but also artists. I a study about pianists. I have a hard time pronouncing that word. People who play
You
the
did it
piano
beautifully.
professionally, how they sit and imagine themselves playing the notes, and it's almost the same brain activity lit up than if they were actually playing it. It's the coolest study because your brain doesn't really know the difference. So if you have different options of you imagining yourself failing because your thoughts are getting negative and you imagining yourself accomplishing, why not feed that to your brain? And it is a practice. We've talked about this. Our brain is trained for negativity as a survival mechanism, and we have to remind our brain, no, I'm safe. Let's focus on this thing that I really, really want. So again, we can go on and on about that, but this is real. It's science. I know I say that it sounds cheesy, but yes, thank you for reminding
It's
us about the
cheesy
science.
science.
Yes.
Love that. All
It,
right, what's next? Number 3.
okay. So the third one, it's also magical. So now that you're in this state where you've connected with your dreams, your goals, you see yourself doing it, ask yourself, this is probably the most important part. Who do you need to be in order to accomplish this? Because it might be different than who you are now. And that's part of the process, that's part of the growth. So, what are some of the things that you need to do here? What do you need to be thinking of? What do you need to focus on? What are the values that you need to put higher up in your priority list? What are some of the beliefs? And this is the work. Again, because when we're listening and we're excited, we're like, of course, yes, I can. And you see yourself being healthier, accomplishing your goals at work and more successful and all the things. But when challenges come, our brain defaults to whatever the regular thinking is. And if the thinking is, oh, that's too hard, or I don't have time for that, or not now, it gets very difficult. So if we connect with those values, like your aspiration, possibilities, the determination, it's like again magic that you're fueling to yourself. So think about it like that. Like, do you have to connect with your love or empathy, family, health, abundance? What are some of those values and beliefs that you need to hold on to, that if you focus on those on a regular basis, if you reminded yourself of those on a regular basis, your life would be different, and it would make it way more likely that you're going to achieve those goals.
Wow, so powerful, Joanne. And that reminds me of this. I think it's a metaphor that I use talking about our recipe of life, and a little bit of salt. You can get the salt to perfection. So sometimes those negative thoughts, maybe they're keeping us safe. Too much salt in that recipe, and it's ruined. And so, can we pay attention? It sounds like you want us to pay attention to what's the recipe. Not that I needed to get to where I am today, but if I'm wanting different results for this coming year with my goals, what's the recipe that's needed? What do you need to add more of? What do you need to subtract in order to be the you that you need to in order to accomplish that goal. So, so powerful. What's next?
Yes. So the fourth step, this is where we usually jump to, which is part of the reason why the typical goal setting doesn't work. Now that you've done all of that good work, now you create your roadmap. For example, if one of the things that you want to do is run a half marathon and you've never run more than a mile nonstop, then you can say, okay, how can I make this goal very specific? How can I make it to a point where I can measure it, that I can set up steps along the way, right? Like maybe that first month you focus on walking and jogging, and then the second month, then you run a little bit more, right? Like without getting specifics about running a marathon, it's just a good example to use. If you want to, like Erin coaches, if you want to get home a little bit earlier with your charts done, and you're usually kind of more than halfway through the day without writing your notes, then you can say, okay, in this first month I'm going to focus on finishing I don't know, three-quarters of my notes, right? Like, I mean, you get this, right? Like this is the straightforward goal setting, right? If you want to have more quality time with your family, then planning, okay, I'm going to have one date night with my spouse a month, and then one quality date with each one of my kids. Things like that. Then, right, like we create the roadmap. We already did the vision of how life would look like in December, and then we architect backwards of what needed to happen month by month so I get there. Again, in alignment with your values, your priorities, the season of your life, and all the emotions, all those thoughts, all those values fueling the action.
Love that. All right. So, what's number 5?
And then number 5, one of our favorites, then we have accountability, which could be a buddy, someone to help you out, or a coach. You can ask if there's something that you have not done before. Do you need help? Do you need to learn more? What are some of those tools? Right. I remember the first time that I ran a marathon, I read a book that's like Marathon for Dummies or something like that. And I had a friend who signed up with me. And we worked.
How did I not know that you ran? It sounds like not just one marathon, but multiple marathons.
I've done multiple. Yes, thank you.
Wow. Okay.
It,
I'm impressed.
and
That has
and
not
it
made
gave
it
me
on my list yet.
it gave me a formula for life. In a little tangent here of, how do you accomplish difficult things? And right, like I had the idea, I made the decision, I said it out loud. You obviously sign up for it, and I got myself a buddy. I learned, and I definitely had a plan, a written plan. So it's similar to what I'm talking here. And actually, one of the things that this book talked about was constantly imagining yourself crossing the finish line. So what an analogy of what I was saying about really the vision of the future focus of you accomplishing all of it. And this is the bonus here, we will celebrate and reflect throughout. So this is how we wrap it all up in this 5th step.
Wow. I love that. And oftentimes I think of the conversations I've had with women physicians, and there's not a lot of celebration. And I think I've brought this up before. One of my clients teaching me the term, sometimes we just need to celebrate the crumbs. And if we start with celebrating the crumbs, then it might still fuel us for being able to better recognize when the wins in the future. And I think of, like, how if you've got a child and they just seem to be acting out, and you're like, being asked that question, what's one positive thing? And you're like, I can't think of anything. Maybe as a parent, some of you might have shared that experience like I have. And yet there's always something positive. So can we turn that on ourselves too, and ask, looking for those celebrations, and do it more often instead of just, oh, yep, check that box and I'm on to the next. One of my clients said, we were having a reflection session the other night, and she said, my colleagues look at me strange when I come into work and I write on my board, I did hot yoga this morning. And they're like, why is it so important to do that? I'm like, she's celebrating herself. She got out of bed early. She went and did hot yoga before she went to work. And I was like, good job for you. And not only are you celebrating yourself, you're role modeling for other women in medicine who haven't quite caught on to it yet.
I
And
love
I
that.
love that. Yeah.
I joke that I said, okay, put your hand up almost like you're about to swear on top of a Bible, and then have your other hand slap it and high five yourself, right? Like, or pat yourself in the back, because we don't definitely we don't do that enough. I love it. I love the all the celebrations. That's again because that's how we move forward. That's how we keep our momentum, and we miss out all the time.
And if it feels uncomfortable, then my mantra is it just means that you need to practice more.
I like that.
Well, I love this process here that you're talking about some of the problems with goal setting, and you actually have a process that helps us do a better job with goals. And I wonder, Joanne, why is it so important specifically for women in medicine to have a clear way of setting goals?
Yeah, so when we think about it, we are all driven, we're all hardworking, smart. We've obviously accomplished a lot of things. So we know how to follow a path. We know how to study, right? Like it's not lack of discipline, but yet usually, especially for those of us who've been in medicine for more than 2 decades, we kind of lose ourselves in the process, and we're at risk, like we've mentioned in this podcast before, we are at risk of anxiety, depression, burnout. And this is a way for us to take charge of how we want to live, how we want to feel, to bring more of that harmony and that sense of fulfillment that we talk about here. It is time to prioritize our well-being, and by well-being it's not just health, go work out and eat better, but also about your mental and emotional well-being. What are the thoughts that you're having on a regular basis? What are the connections that you're having? Who is around you? Are you taking time off? We don't always have to put our work first, which is how we're programmed, and it's kind of redefining success and fulfillment in our terms. And if we take the time to really connect, get back to our core, feel our hearts, we'll know what we know. This is a knowing that's in you. We know what's important, and then we can protect it. Then we can set boundaries. Then we'll find the time, because we're going to be very clear instead of just running around, just working or under someone else's agenda.
Taking out that randomness, because if we don't create our agenda, somebody else will. And that's, I think, oftentimes how women in medicine end up in a place in their lives that they're not happy with or confused at how they got there because they didn't take control. I love that. So, as a recap, you shared that we can have problems with goal setting, but we can think about it differently. So, goal setting doesn't have to seem overwhelming or like a traumatic event. And you can have a process, and I loved your process. You talked about reflecting on your prior year so you can celebrate and see what you might need to adjust for the next year, using the power of visualization in order to help make that um, materialize. The question asking, who do I need to be in order to accomplish this goal? And then number 4 was creating a roadmap on how to get there, kind of chunking it down into small pieces that are attainable. And then number 5 was finding what you need for accountability and support. And you also had this overlaying umbrella of making sure things are in alignment with your values and who you want to be is going to help decrease some of that friction in accomplishing goals. And then lastly, it's so important for us as women in medicine is because we need to take charge. And you said it's time for us to prioritize not only our success in our work, but our own kind of holistic well-being. That's so, so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing those messages. And I'm sure you have another bit of wisdom that you'd like to share with our listener, Joanne. What other thought do you have as we talk about goals for this new year?
What comes to mind, especially with our conversation, is that we need to be the role models. If you are listening It's because you know there's something different that can be done. You know that there are ways that you can feel better. And we need to practice this. And then we need to share the goodness. And I love that putting in the board the celebration of I did yoga. We need more of that. That's exactly what I mean with us role modeling and us really taking time off and letting people know I'm disconnecting. You cannot call me after 5 p.m. and setting those boundaries and really role modeling, putting ourselves first, because that's how we will be at our best. And then the ripple effect of everyone benefiting from it, like we always talk about in this podcast.
Yeah, that ripple effect is so powerful. Well, thank you for all that wisdom that you shared with us on this session, Joanne. And we look forward to seeing you in our next session. And if you would like to help us get in front of more listeners, more viewers, if you can go to our show, Create Meaning in Medicine, go to those stars and give us an honest rating and review, that would be so helpful to help us get in front of more women in medicine. And with that, we'll see you in the next episode.
Do you want exclusive resources and the opportunity to connect with us? Then visit createmeaninginmedicine.com now, where you'll dive deeper into how you can create meaning in medicine. And if you're serious about optimizing your results, take 2 quick steps now. Connect with us on the website and tune in to the next episode.